I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I've been married to my wife Lily for a year now. We've been together for 4 years total, and honestly, our relationship has always been solid. We live a few hours away from her family, which in my opinion has been a blessing. Because if we lived any closer, I might have lost my mind by now. See, Lily's mother, my mother-in-law, is the kind of person who just has to have control over everything, and I mean everything. She's the type to insist on being involved in every tiny aspect of her children's lives, treating them like they're still little kids who need permission to breathe. When Lily and I first got together, I noticed it right away. Her mom would call multiple times a day, ask way too many questions, and give unsolicited advice about literally everything. What Lily should eat, how often she should call home, and even how she should dress. At first, I thought it was just an overprotective mom thing, but over time, I realized it was much worse. If Lily ever made a decision without consulting her, there would be consequences. Passive-aggressive guilt trips, long dramatic monologues about family values, or if mother-in-law was feeling particularly petty, she'd go radio silent for a few days, waiting for Lily to apologize for daring to think for herself. Still, I figured that once we got married, she'd back off a little. Marriage tends to set clear boundaries, right? Yeah, not in this case. Lily and I decided to invite her parents and younger brother over for a weekend visit. They hadn't been to our house since we moved in, and we wanted to make an effort to smooth things over. Lily had been standing up to her mom more, and while it caused tension, she still wanted to maintain some kind of relationship. I wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea, but I was willing to play nice for her sake. The first night went as expected, awkward small talk. Some passive-aggressive comments from mother-in-law about how different Lily had become since moving away, and an entire dinner conversation where she tried and failed to subtly ask about our finances. Father-in-law, as usual, kept quiet, letting his wife do all the talking. Lily's younger brother didn't say much either, though he did smirk whenever mother-in-law got particularly pushy. By the second day, I was just trying to survive the visit without losing my patience. While everyone was downstairs, I went to the guest room to grab something from the desk drawer. That's when I saw it. A notebook sitting right on top of the desk, labeled for family use only in big bold letters. Now, I'm not usually one to snoop, but something about it caught my attention. It was just sitting there, almost like it was meant to be found. So curiosity got the best of me, and I flipped it open. Inside, written in neat cursive, was a title that made me freeze in place: Rules for My Name. At first I thought it was a joke, but as I read through the list, I realized my mother-in-law had actually written out a list of suggestions and expectations for me as Lily's husband, and while they weren't explicitly demands, they were clearly meant to control how I behaved. Stuff like major life events must be shared with Lily's family first before anyone else. Financial decisions must be discussed with the family before being finalized. Weekly Sunday calls are mandatory, no exceptions. Lily's family events take priority over everything else. Never argue with Lily in front of us. Lily must never move too far away from the family home. There were more, but you get the idea. It was insane. She wasn't just trying to be involved. She was straight up trying to run my marriage like a boardroom meeting. I took the notebook downstairs and showed it to Lily right then and there. She was just as shocked as I was. She hadn't seen it before and had no idea her mother had written something like this. Without hesitating, she confronted her mom in front of everyone. Mother-in-law didn't even look embarrassed. She just crossed her arms and said it was a guideline to help ensure a healthy family dynamic, as if it was completely normal to draft a rule book for someone else's marriage. When Lily told her this was completely out of line, mother-in-law rolled her eyes and said something about how I still had a lot to learn about being a husband. Apparently, she believed it was her job to train me into the kind of spouse she approved of. Father-in-law just sat there looking uncomfortable, but of course, he didn't say a word. Brother-in-law was grinning like this was the most entertaining thing he had ever seen. That's when mother-in-law dropped her ultimatum. She said that if I wasn't willing to respect the family's rules, then I'd be treated as an outsider. Oh no, how will I ever survive? I sarcastically thanked her for the warning, and that's when she completely lost it, ranting about how I was being disrespectful, and how I clearly didn't care about family values. I didn't even bother arguing with her. What was the point? She had already decided she was right. The rest of the visit was tense, to say the least. Mother-in-law and brother-in-law spent most of the evening whispering in the corner like they were plotting something, while father-in-law continued to sit there pretending he wasn't involved. When they finally left the next morning, I could feel the storm brewing. Mother-in-law had drawn her line in the sand, and I knew she wasn't going to let this go. So I made a decision. If mother-in-law expected me to follow her ridiculous list of rules, I was going to do the exact opposite. She wanted control? Fine. She was about to learn just how much control she didn't have over my life. Update 1. A week after my in-laws' visit, I got a big promotion at work. It was the kind of milestone most people would share with close family, but given the ridiculous rulebook mother-in-law had written, I knew exactly how she expected this to go. She wanted Lily and me to inform her first before telling anyone else. So naturally, I did the exact opposite. I made a public announcement on social media, a simple post about the promotion, thanking my team and looking forward to the future. Nothing crazy. Less than an hour later, mother-in-law's texts started rolling in. She demanded to know why she hadn't been informed first, how this was a major family event, and how it was disrespectful that she had to find out through a public announcement. I didn't bother responding. When I checked Lily's phone, I saw mother-in-law had also flooded her messages with the same complaints. Lily sighed, put her phone on silent, and went back to what she was doing. Ignoring her only made her angrier. The next day, she sent another long-winded message about how Sunday calls are mandatory and we were expected to check in. Sunday came. Instead of calling, Lily and I went out for brunch. We left our phones on silent, enjoyed our food, and spent the rest of the afternoon walking around the city. By the time we got back, mother-in-law had called 9 times and left a series of increasingly dramatic messages about disrespect, family unity, and the importance of tradition. Lily deleted them all without listening. Later that evening, we got a FaceTime request from an unknown number. Just for fun, Lily and I decided to test another rule, the one that said we must never argue in front of them. We staged a fake disagreement about something stupid, whether pineapple belongs on pizza or not. Nothing serious, just enough to get a reaction. Mother-in-law immediately jumped in, her voice high-pitched and frantic, trying to mediate as if we were on the verge of divorce. She told us how important it was to maintain a harmonious marriage and how couples should never disrespect each other in front of family. We let her ramble for a while before Lily, barely holding in laughter, ended the call mid-sentence. Mother-in-law lost her mind in the family group chat. That week, Lily and I also broke another one of her precious rules. We bought a new car. Instead of consulting mother-in-law, we picked the one we liked, signed the papers, and posted a picture of it. Mother-in-law's reaction was immediate. She demanded to know why we hadn't asked for advice first. Apparently, major financial decisions must be approved by the family. Once again, we ignored her. She wasn't done though. Since I wasn't responding, she decided to go above me. She called my mother. Now my mom doesn't play these games. When mother-in-law started complaining about how I was making reckless financial choices and shutting her out, my mom simply laughed and said, "We raised our son to be independent. You should try it sometime." Then she hung up. Mother-in-law did not take that well. By then it was time for another mandatory family gathering. Instead of attending, Lily and I booked a weekend getaway. We didn't announce it, didn't ask for permission, just packed our bags and left. The group chat exploded. Mother-in-law and brother-in-law were spamming messages about disrespect and betrayal, acting like we had personally insulted their entire bloodline. I sent a single meme in response. Mother-in-law's rage only grew stronger when we went to the next family dinner, and I deliberately took the seat next to Lily. That was supposed to be her seat. She glared at me the entire time, but I acted completely oblivious. Throughout dinner, I casually started referring to mother-in-law as the counsel, making jokes about how I must seek permission before making any decisions. She wasn't amused. Later that night, brother-in-law messaged me privately. He told me to stop being difficult and just follow the family's expectations. I asked him if he had to follow similar rules in his relationships. He went silent. Just to push mother-in-law over the edge, I made another joke during a family video call. She had a rule that she must be the first to hold any future grandchildren. So, naturally, I threw in a casual, "If we ever have kids, I'll make sure the delivery nurse holds them first," just for fun. For the first time in history, mother-in-law had no words. She just sat there, mouth slightly open, processing what I had just said. Brother-in-law, on the other hand, had to mute himself because he was laughing so hard. That was also the moment Lily started to change. She had always been hesitant to fully push back against her mother. But after weeks of seeing just how ridiculous mother-in-law's rules were, she finally started standing up for herself more. She no longer responded to the guilt trips, no longer justified her decisions, and no longer let mother-in-law manipulate her into feeling bad. Mother-in-law, of course, didn't see it that way. According to her, I had brainwashed Lily. The final straw came when she sent a long emotional message about how I was ruining the family dynamic and how I owed her an apology for my behavior. I responded with a single thumbs up emoji. Within minutes, father-in-law called me from an unknown number. His voice was lower than usual, and he only said one thing: "She's not done. Be careful." Update 2. It started with an unannounced visit. A week after mother-in-law's tantrum in the family group chat, she and brother-in-law showed up at our front door without warning. No text, no call, just standing there like they were about to deliver a court summons. Lily and I were in the middle of cooking dinner when we saw them through the window. Instead of answering right away, I decided to make them wait. 30 minutes, to be exact. When I finally opened the door, mother-in-law had full tragic victim mode activated. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling, and she barely got a word out before the fake sobs started. She dramatically talked about how she had tried so hard to keep the family together, how it broke her heart to see us pulling away, and how traditions were sacred, but I was destroying them. I handed her a tissue and stood there, waiting for her to get to the point. That's when brother-in-law decided to step in. He squared his shoulders, puffed out his chest, and in the most "I'm the man of this family" voice possible, he started lecturing me about respect. Something about how I needed to stop acting like an outsider, stop causing unnecessary drama, and start following the rules like a real husband should. I laughed. Then I asked him when he started talking like a 1950s sitcom dad. Brother-in-law's jaw clenched, but before he could say anything, mother-in-law went for the nuclear option. She turned to Lily, and in the most gentle but insidious voice, asked if she was truly happy. She told her to think about her future, about whether she really wanted to spend her life with someone who had no respect for family values. She told her to be honest with herself. Was this marriage really what she wanted? It was a trap. A setup to get Lily to second-guess everything, to plant doubt, to make her hesitate. But instead of hesitating, Lily did something that made mother-in-law gasp like she had been physically struck. She looked her mother dead in the eye and said, "OP treats me with more respect than you ever have." Silence. Mother-in-law's face twitched. Brother-in-law shifted uncomfortably. Lily didn't waver. I told them it was time to leave. Mother-in-law snapped out of her stunned state and tried to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I shut the door in her face. Not even 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Brother-in-law had sent a single text. "You have no idea what you've just done. She's planning something big." I replied, "Can't wait." Mother-in-law wasted no time rallying her extended family attack squad. Within days, we started getting calls, texts, and emails from aunts, uncles, and random cousins, people we hadn't spoken to in years. The messages all followed the same script. Family is everything. Mother-in-law loves you. She just wants what's best. You need to apologize and make things right. Instead of engaging, Lily blocked them. Every single one. Mother-in-law realized she was losing control, so she upped the stakes. I got pulled aside at work by my boss. Apparently someone had filed a complaint against me for unethical behavior. It was vague. Nothing specific, just a concerned party suggesting I might not be trustworthy in a leadership role. My boss, who had been in the business for years, immediately saw through it. After confirming that I was, in fact, not engaging in mysterious unethical activities, he laughed, shook his head, and told me to be careful of who I let into my personal life. I told him the whole story. He laughed even harder. Mother-in-law's attempt had failed spectacularly. Since her behind-the-scenes tactics weren't working, mother-in-law went for the public spectacle. She started posting vague, dramatic messages about certain people ruining families and how she had given everything for her children, only to be disrespected and cast aside. The comments were mostly people asking if she was okay or sending generic sympathy without knowing the details, though some questioned what had really happened. I decided to have a little fun. I left a comment, "Whoever you're talking about sounds awesome." Within minutes the post was deleted. By this point, Lily was done. Done with the guilt, done with the manipulation, done with the constant pressure to please a woman who never once prioritized her happiness. She started therapy. It wasn't an easy decision. Mother-in-law had spent years planting the idea that therapy was for weak people and real families worked through things together. But Lily knew she had a lot to unpack. Years of being guilt-tripped, manipulated, and gaslighted. She didn't tell mother-in-law about it. Mother-in-law, realizing she was running out of cards to play, decided to go nuclear. She sent a final dramatic message. "If you continue down this path, you will be disowned. I will have no choice but to remove you from this family." Lily and I read it together. Then we looked at each other and shrugged. Lily typed back, "Okay." The next meltdown was legendary. Mother-in-law sent a mass email to the entire family, distant relatives, in-laws, cousins, blaming me for tearing Lily away from her family and declaring that she was officially cutting us off. Most people ignored it. A few sent polite, "Hope everything works out" responses. One uncle replied, with a single word, "Unsubscribe." That's when father-in-law reached out. A short text, nothing dramatic, just 3 words, "Brace yourself." I smirked. Mother-in-law wasn't done yet. Update 3. Ignoring mother-in-law only made her more desperate. She switched tactics. This time she exaggerated things even further with a smear campaign. It started with phone calls to extended family. She told them that I was controlling and isolating Lily, that I had turned her against her own mother, and that she was worried Lily was being manipulated, all without a shred of proof. A few relatives, the ones who always believed mother-in-law's dramatic tales, took her side without question. But others, especially the ones who actually knew Lily, somehow found ways to contact us despite the blocks. Once they heard the real story, they were shocked at mother-in-law's behavior. Mother-in-law realized she wasn't getting full support, so she tried a different approach, turning father-in-law against me. She told him I was brainwashing Lily and driving a wedge in the family. But father-in-law had spent years dealing with mother-in-law's antics. He had stopped trying to control her a long time ago. His response? She's spiraling. I've learned not to interfere. That was the moment mother-in-law knew she was on her own. Brother-in-law, still convinced mother-in-law could be reasoned with, messaged me again. He told me to apologize and move on because mother-in-law wouldn't stop until she won. I asked him if he had to follow rules in his relationships, if mother-in-law dictated his life the way she tried to dictate Lily's. He hesitated for a moment before changing the subject. Then came the next stunt. A family member sent me screenshots of messages that I had supposedly sent, messages where I was bad-mouthing mother-in-law and admitting to trying to cut Lily off from her family. It was obvious they were fake. The wording wasn't even close to how I text, and they were poorly edited, making it clear they were fabricated. I immediately debunked them, sending proof of my actual messages. The family member who showed me the fake messages apologized. They had believed mother-in-law at first, but now they saw what was really happening. Mother-in-law, when confronted, panicked. She stammered, deflected, and then accused me of gaslighting her. Classic. Since her last attempt at ruining my job failed, she set her sights on Lily's workplace. She showed up in person, demanding to speak privately with Lily. Security turned her away immediately, and Lily filed a formal complaint. Mother-in-law tried arguing with the security guard, saying it was a family matter. When that didn't work, she started yelling about how she had given birth to Lily, and had every right to see her. She was escorted out. After that humiliation, she did what she always did, ran to social media. This time she posted a dramatic rant about how her daughter had been stolen from her, how she had sacrificed so much only to be abandoned, and how some people don't appreciate what family truly means. The response? Almost nothing. A few generic "hope you're okay" comments, but mostly silence, though a couple of her close friends still defended her. Mother-in-law must have realized no one was taking the bait, because she deleted the post within hours. Later that week, I got a message from someone unexpected. Brother-in-law's girlfriend. She told me that mother-in-law treats brother-in-law the same way. Every relationship he had ever been in, mother-in-law found a way to interfere. If a girl got too close, mother-in-law would start the same cycle: control, guilt trips, and manipulation. She warned me that mother-in-law wouldn't stop. She hated when her children were independent. Mother-in-law wasn't done yet. She reached out to Lily again, this time demanding a private meeting. No OP, no distractions, just mother-in-law and her daughter. Lily didn't even consider it. That was when she finally cut contact. Blocked mother-in-law and everything. No more second chances, no more guilt, no more hoping her mother would change. With everything else failing, mother-in-law pulled the final, desperate card. She told a family member to pass along a message. If Lily and I didn't come to our senses, she would cut us out of her will. Lily and I shrugged. Mother-in-law panicked and backtracked immediately. Ignoring mother-in-law wasn't enough. It was time to go on the offensive. Update 4. Mother-in-law had spent months spreading lies, manipulating family members, and pulling every trick in the book to keep control. It was time to flip the script. Lily and I started reaching out to the relatives mother-in-law had misled. We shared proof, texts, emails, even screenshots of the fake messages she tried to frame me with. One by one, people started seeing the truth. Some apologized for believing mother-in-law's lies. Others were just shocked at how far she had gone. The shift was immediate. Where mother-in-law once had support, now there was silence. Realizing she was losing ground, mother-in-law went into full panic mode. She called everyone she could, scrambling to convince them that I was the real manipulator. But at that point, it didn't matter. The receipts spoke for themselves. The family chat, once filled with her dramatic rants, was suddenly empty. No one was rushing to defend her anymore. The next person to turn on mother-in-law was brother-in-law's girlfriend. After watching mother-in-law escalate for months, she finally snapped and told her to back off. Mother-in-law lost it. She accused brother-in-law's girlfriend of poisoning him against his own family and destroying their bond. Brother-in-law, usually quick to defend mother-in-law, stayed quiet. He didn't take his mother's side this time. Mother-in-law was deeply involved in her local church. She had built up a reputation as a model mother, always talking about family values, always playing the victim. So she tried to weaponize that. She started spreading her sob story to church members, painting Lily and me as the ungrateful, rebellious kids who had abandoned her. Some believed her at first, but others were skeptical, having seen glimpses of her controlling nature before. She thought people would rally around her. Instead, Lily and I sent a quiet email to the church leadership, detailing everything mother-in-law had been doing. We provided proof, her harassment, the false accusations, the attempts to sabotage my job. The next time mother-in-law attended service, she was pulled aside for a private conversation. She came out humiliated. Whatever sympathy she had left, gone. Father-in-law had spent years staying silent, avoiding conflict, letting mother-in-law do whatever she wanted. But after watching her completely unravel, he finally had enough. He told mother-in-law she was embarrassing herself, that she needed to stop. Mother-in-law's reaction: she broke down, sobbed, blamed me for everything. I was the reason her family was turning against her. Father-in-law didn't argue. He just walked away. A few days later, mother-in-law did something unexpected. She messaged me, acting like nothing had happened. Told me she wanted to start fresh. No mention of the chaos she had caused. No acknowledgement of the damage she had done. I ignored her. With everything else failing, mother-in-law went for one last desperate stunt. She tried to report me to my job again. This time, my boss didn't even bother pulling me aside. He just forwarded the complaint to me with a laughing emoji. The turning point came when brother-in-law finally reached his limit. He saw the mess mother-in-law had created. He saw how she had pushed people away, even him. He told her he was done, that he was taking a step back. Mother-in-law snapped. She screamed at him for choosing outsiders over his own mother. Brother-in-law didn't argue. He just walked away. At this point, mother-in-law had no one left. She made one last attempt at an online rant. A dramatic post about ungrateful children, betrayal, and how some people only appreciate family when it's gone. It got zero traction. Nobody cared anymore. Then father-in-law dropped the biggest bombshell. He reached out to me privately, said he was considering divorce. After years of putting up with mother-in-law, watching her destroy every relationship around her, he was done. I stayed out of it. Whatever father-in-law decided was his choice. But for the first time, it felt like mother-in-law's control was finally crumbling. With mother-in-law completely isolated, Lily and I focused on moving forward. No more drama, no more manipulations, no more control. Mother-in-law had spent years trying to dictate our lives. Now she had no power at all. Update 5. For weeks there was silence. No texts, no emails, no flying monkeys. After months of chaos, mother-in-law had gone completely quiet, which meant only one thing. She was planning something big. One afternoon, Lily and I were enjoying a quiet weekend at home when we heard banging at the front door. Mother-in-law, standing on the porch, arms crossed, face twisted in frustration. She had never come to our house uninvited before. I didn't open the door. She knocked again, harder this time, then tried the door handle, locked. That's when she started yelling. Accusations about how I had stolen her daughter, how I was controlling Lily, how I was ruining the family. We ignored her. That only made her louder. A neighbor, hearing the commotion, must have thought something serious was happening because suddenly police cars pulled up. Mother-in-law, now crying on cue, ran to them before they even got out of the car. She pointed at the house and told them I was keeping Lily hostage. The officers knocked, and when Lily answered the door, calm, unharmed, and obviously not being held against her will, they immediately knew mother-in-law was lying. Mother-in-law tried arguing, claiming Lily was too afraid to speak up. The officers asked if she was being held against her will. Lily said no. Mother-in-law demanded they do something. They did. They gave her a formal warning for causing a disturbance. She left, but not before screaming that I was destroying the family. After her spectacular failure, mother-in-law took her usual route. Social media. This time, the post was even more dramatic than before. She ranted about how she was being kept from her daughter, how I had brainwashed Lily, and how she was the victim of a cruel, manipulative man who was tearing her family apart. She must have expected support. She got nothing. The post sat there, barely getting a reaction. A few sympathy comments, some generic stay strong replies, but most people ignored it. A day later, she deleted it. Then, the real bombshell dropped. Father-in-law, who had stayed out of this as much as possible, called me. He told me he had been thinking about divorce for a while. He was done. Done with her. Done with the drama. Done being her puppet. Mother-in-law didn't take it well. She accused me of brainwashing father-in-law too, because of course, if someone wasn't on her side, it had to be my fault. Brother-in-law, who had spent most of this defending mother-in-law, finally saw the full picture. After hearing about the police stunt, the social media breakdown, and now father-in-law leaving, he realized mother-in-law wasn't a victim. She was the problem. Mother-in-law demanded that he back her up. Brother-in-law refused. When mother-in-law screamed at him, he blocked her. Hours later, I got one final text, a long, dramatic message blaming me for everything. She accused me of tearing her family apart, of poisoning her children against her, and warned me that I would regret this someday. I didn't respond, blocked her number. That was the last direct message she ever sent me. The fallout was immediate. People who once defended her now saw her for what she was. The family chat, dead silent. The church community, no longer interested. Her friends, slowly pulling away. Mother-in-law had burned every bridge. After exhausting every other option, mother-in-law tried one last move. She went to Lily's workplace. Security removed her immediately. She was officially banned from the building. At that point, Lily and I considered filing a restraining order, but after talking it over, we decided to wait. Mother-in-law had lost everything. No allies, no control, no power. If she stayed away, we wouldn't escalate it. Days later, father-in-law moved out. Mother-in-law was completely alone. She had nothing left to manipulate. Her last act of desperation, an email. Another long-winded rant about how she had sacrificed so much and how she was the real victim. I deleted it. So did Lily. For the first time, mother-in-law was gone. No calls, no visits, no drama. But I knew one thing, she wasn't done yet. Update 6. After months of chaos, mother-in-law went silent. No Facebook posts, no dramatic messages, no unhinged emails. She had vanished from the family group chats, stopped reaching out to relatives, and for the first time since this all started, it was quiet. Too quiet. Lily and I both knew exactly what that meant. Mother-in-law was planning something. While mother-in-law was off plotting her next move, father-in-law was done waiting. He officially filed for divorce. Mother-in-law, upon realizing this wasn't another empty threat, lost it. She called him non-stop, leaving dozens of frantic voicemails, begging, threatening, and even accusing him of abandoning his family in their time of need. Father-in-law ignored her. He had spent years letting her control his life. He wasn't doing it anymore. With father-in-law ignoring her, mother-in-law turned to brother-in-law. She played the victim, telling him that she was losing everything because of me. She said she had been cast out, betrayed by the people she loved most. Brother-in-law, exhausted from months of her manipulations, told her she needed to figure out her own life. Then he hung up. A few days later, a letter arrived in the mail, handwritten, from mother-in-law. It wasn't addressed to both of us, only to Lily. Mother-in-law had bypassed every digital wall we had put up, and gone old school, pouring out a desperate plea for Lily to come home and leave me behind. Lily didn't even read past the first few sentences. She shredded it on the spot. The next attempt came from an unknown number. When I answered, it was mother-in-law. She faked distress, claiming she had nowhere to go, that father-in-law had left her, that she had lost everything. I didn't say a word, just hung up, blocked the number. Mother-in-law must have realized she was running out of options, because her next stunt was even more desperate. A distant relative hosted a family gathering. Mother-in-law wasn't invited. She showed up anyway. She made a scene, tears, accusations, shouting about betrayal and disrespect. The host told her to leave. For the first time, no one defended her. Then mother-in-law switched gears. Suddenly she was sweet. She sent Lily messages about forgiveness, about family unity, about how life is too short to hold grudges. Lily didn't respond. She knew better. Right when mother-in-law was pretending to be struggling, father-in-law dropped a bombshell. She wasn't actually broke. Mother-in-law had been hiding money for years. She had plenty of savings, but playing the victim was easier than taking responsibility. Father-in-law told the family the truth. Mother-in-law panicked. With nothing left, mother-in-law sent one last message to Lily. She warned her that if she didn't fix things, she would never see her mother again. Lily's response: "That's your choice." Mother-in-law didn't know how to react. Mother-in-law, out of options, tried one last stunt. She contacted my workplace again, filing another complaint. This time, my boss warned me immediately. The complaint ignored. Then a distant relative reached out with a tip-off. Mother-in-law was planning something big. Days later, we got a call from the police. An anonymous report had been filed, a domestic abuse claim against me. Lily and I set the record straight immediately. The officer apologized for the inconvenience. Mother-in-law's last move had failed. We were done waiting. Lily and I filed for a restraining order. Mother-in-law wanted war. She had just lost it. Update 7. The restraining order was officially filed. Lily and I documented everything. The harassment, the false reports, the workplace interference. The judge didn't hesitate. A temporary restraining order was granted immediately, while we waited for the final hearing. Mother-in-law was now legally barred from contacting us, stepping foot near our home, or trying to reach us through third parties. We had cut her off for good. The second mother-in-law found out about the restraining order, she went nuclear. She called every family member she still had left, crying, screaming, and blaming Lily for ruining her life. She painted herself as the tragic mother whose ungrateful daughter had turned on her, manipulated by an evil, controlling husband. A few distant relatives tried guilt-tripping Lily. They sent messages about family being everything, and how life is too short for grudges. Lily ignored them. The restraining order only made father-in-law's divorce proceedings move faster. Mother-in-law had no more leverage, no emotional manipulation tactics left. She had exhausted every option. In court, she threw tantrums. She accused father-in-law of abandoning her, of being brainwashed by outsiders. The judge wasn't interested. Father-in-law pushed forward, realizing she was losing everything. Mother-in-law went online for one last desperate rant. She posted about betrayal, evil people, ungrateful children, and how she had sacrificed everything, only to be thrown away. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew who she was talking about. Instead of getting sympathy, the few remaining people who hadn't already abandoned her saw through it. The post got barely any engagement. Then, just like before, she deleted it. Lily, after seeing one last passive-aggressive message from mother-in-law through a distant relative, decided to end it completely. She sent one last message to mother-in-law: "I will not be manipulated anymore. I'm done." Mother-in-law's only response: You'll regret this. We blocked mother-in-law on everything. With the restraining order in place, she legally couldn't contact us, harass us, or try to manipulate family members into getting involved. She was completely isolated, not ready to accept defeat. Mother-in-law convinced distant relatives to send messages to Lily, messages of guilt tripping, messages urging Lily to reconcile before it's too late. Lily didn't even read them. Blocked. Seeing mother-in-law completely unravel, brother-in-law finally went low contact with her too. He had spent months defending her, but even he had a limit. When mother-in-law tried calling him to complain about how father-in-law and Lily had abandoned her, brother-in-law simply said, "Maybe you should think about why everyone is leaving." Then he stopped answering her calls. With everything else failing, mother-in-law made one final attempt to sabotage me. This time, she mailed a physical letter to my employer. It was a rambling mess of false accusations, playing the victim, warning them that I was not a good person. It ended up in my boss's hands. They handed it to me with a single sentence: "You have some interesting in-laws." Ignored. Thrown away. Mother-in-law had spent years building a social circle where she was the perfect mother. Now, people saw her for what she was. Her friends distanced themselves. Her church stopped engaging. Her reputation was destroyed. She had pushed too far, too many times. After months of delays, mother-in-law officially lost the divorce. Father-in-law was free. He moved on, cutting mother-in-law out for good. Mother-in-law alone, with no options left. Mother-in-law faked a medical emergency. She told relatives she was sick, hospitalized, and needed Lily to be by her side. The truth? She had simply gone to urgent care for a minor issue. Lily called her out on the lie. Mother-in-law never responded. Completely out of options, mother-in-law moved in with a distant cousin in another city. No one missed her. For the first time in years, there was peace. No drama, no manipulation, no mother-in-law. Lily and I threw a small gathering with friends, not just to celebrate mother-in-law being gone, but to mark the start of our new life. A life without her control, without her interference. For the first time, we were finally free. Update 8. A year passed. Mother-in-law had become a ghost. The restraining order kept her away, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she never attempted contact. No emails, no calls, no third-party guilt trips. It was as if she had finally realized she had lost. Without mother-in-law pulling the strings, brother-in-law changed. He started making his own decisions, got out of the toxic cycle of approval seeking, and even began dating someone without mother-in-law's interference. He never outright said it, but it was obvious. He was relieved. Father-in-law, finally free, started traveling. He reconnected with old friends, visited places he had always wanted to go, and built a new life for himself. Mother-in-law had spent years making him believe he needed her. The moment he left, he flourished. Without mother-in-law, family events were actually enjoyable. No drama, no tension, no walking on eggshells. Relatives who once tiptoed around her mood swings now felt relaxed. At one point, she tried a last-ditch attempt. She sent a message through a third party, hoping we would respond. We didn't. She was still blocked. Most of the family distanced themselves from her. The relatives who once defended her saw the truth. The church group she used to manipulate, done with her. Her friends slowly disappeared. She was completely isolated. With no more chaos, Lily and I thrived. Without the constant interference, we grew stronger. Mother-in-law had spent years trying to break us apart, but in the end, she only made us closer. Just to be safe, we extended the restraining order. Mother-in-law had been quiet, but we weren't taking chances. She made one final post online, a long dramatic rant about losing everything, about how she was abandoned after everything she did for her family. This time no one responded. No sympathy, no engagement, just silence. She deleted it. I realized something. I had broken every rule mother-in-law had ever set, and in the end, none of them mattered. Her control was an illusion. Without mother-in-law's influence, Lily was finally free. She lived life on her own terms, without guilt, without manipulation. She faded into irrelevance. She had spent her life demanding control, and now, she had nothing. Lily and I bought a new home, a place with no memories of mother-in-law's interference. A fresh start. Mother-in-law's rules, broken, forever. And I laughed.